typically I like to have Friday quizzes, so I'm giving you a heads up to go ahead and get ready and to go ahead and get prepared for it. We introduced a lot of people yesterday, the Spanish conquistadors. That's one reason why I want to go over them. Then if I have time, we're going to go over it at the end of class because we got to learn about the French explorers as well. So I want to learn about the Spanish and then the French. Yes?
Is the quiz going to be Roberto tomorrow?
We will find out at the end of class.
Mr. Dasty has been rubbing off too much on you.
Fair enough. That's the reason why I keep saying I want to review once I finish. One, because I need to finish the chapter, and then we will review. So that probably means, I should probably review everything we've talked about up through today. Alright, so thinking back over it, we'll do just the palm game just because you're all right there, and I don't know how the other games with the dart game will come up with the camera. So we'll do just the palm games right now. And like I said, if we have time at the end, maybe at the end, but I want to get through this fast. Alright, so thinking back over it, who do we give credit for saying that America was its own separate landmass? And because of that, America is named after him. Go ahead and close up your textbooks though, so you're not a cheater. Am I looking at you?
It looked like you were, honestly, you really did.
Okay, I'm looking at Brecken. So if you don't have a textbook, you don't have to defend yourself. If you're not doing anything wrong, don't worry about it. Alright, so who do we name America after? Go. Gotta go with Brecken this time. Good job. Alright, so what was the line that divided up the new discovered land between two countries? We're going to talk about the countries in a second. So what do you call that imaginary line that the Pope drew? So that we say one country gets one half, one country gets the other half, except they weren't really halves. So, okay, that's Chris.
Line of demarcation. Can I say you drew it?
That's going to be the question in a couple of turns. Just hang on. Alright, what two countries were involved with the line of demarcation though? So I want both countries. Go. It was Chris.
Are you kidding?
Nope.
Brazil and Spain?
Brazil and Spain?
Brazil and France?
Brazil and France?
Yeah.
That's your final answer?
Yes.
Nope. Ethan.
Spain and Portugal.
Spain and Portugal. Brazil is the country in South America, and Portugal funds Brazil later on. So that's where Brazil's coming from. As we know, it's Portugal and Spain at the time. Alright, what was the name for the Pope that drew the line of demarcation? Go. I was even that time though. Okay. The fourth,
The fifth.
the fifth.
The sixth.
I'm just making sure. You can't just keep changing the letters. Which letters do you want? The sixth?
The fourth.
The fourth, for sure.
The fifth.
The fifth.
Yeah, the fifth.
Final answer, fifth?
Yeah.
Nope, Chris. Which one?
The sixth.
The sixth.
Bruh!
The sixth. Pope Alexander said, you just had the Roman numeral on the wrong side.
She literally gave it to you.
Alright, it's okay, we gotta keep going. What is, okay, thinking about the conquistadors, who discovered Florida? He was looking for the Fountain of Youth as a side note. Go. It's Chris again, and then Brecken.
What's his name, sir?
First name starts with J.
Juan J.
Say
Is
no.
it Leon?
Ponce de Leon, do you, what?
Juan Ponce de Leon?
Yes, Juan Ponce de Leon. So yeah, it is a
Juan?
lot, it sounds like it's rhyming, but
I
yeah.
thought it was just Ponce de Leon.
That's first name. Your book gives his first name now. Juan is how they say it. J-U-A-N. So the first name is now
So
added.
what's De Leon? His middle name?
No, that's their last name. Like the Gama.
So
That's
that's-
all part of their last name.
What's
They
Ponce?
put of in front of their last names. So it's like so and so of family. So and so. It's Spanish. I know. All right. Who discovered the Pacific Ocean? Pacific. Go. Okay, that one was Ethan Barely.
Balboa. No.
Okay, I will take it because it's last name. Do you remember his first name?
Hold on.
A couple seconds. We gotta go.
No.
Okay.
His first name, can I get his point?
Nope. Vasco da Gama. Because the last name is the more important part. But again, spelling error.
You
if
said
you don't fit.
you said Vasco da Gama.
Sorry. It's like Vasco de Balboa.
I was gonna say that.
Vasco de Balboa. Alright, who do we give credit for embarking on an epic 3-year voyage around the world? Although technically he died and his crew made it. But who do we give credit for this? Go. Cheater.
Ferdinand Magellan.
That's Ferdinand Magellan. Alright, who conquered the Aztecs? We talked about this guy a lot, so hopefully everyone knows this one. Everybody. Very fast. Go. Okay, that was easy.
Cortez.
Cortez, you remember his first name?
Ferdinand.
What was it?
And her name.
Good job, Fernando Cortez. Alright, who conquered the Incas of Peru? Go. Who was Ethan again now?
Pizarro.
Good job with first name.
What's his last name? Oh, first name Thomas.
Yes.
Francisco Pizarro.
Francisco Pizarro. Alright, who started, or whose expedition inspired stories of the 7 cities of Cibola, or the 7 cities of gold?
Oh.
Whose exploration? Go. Chris?
What's his name, Joey?
His first name begins with a C.
Last name?
The last, okay, it has the V like in the middle of it, but the last word for the last name begins with a V.
First name starts with a C.
Mhm.
And his last name starts with a, it's D.
V is for the last, like it's something, day, and then V.
Dave Vasco. Is that last?
Okay, not Vasco.
Coronado? Coronado?
Nope. Alright, so make a note for the, anyone else wanna guess?
Not him.
Genesis, are you guessing? No, Coronado, someone else. Alright, Cabaza, it's spelled funky, I'm just giving it a Spanish pronunciation. So, Cabaza de Vaca.
Oh.
So, it's on page 9, just write page 9 and then spell it as best you can. His last name is spelled V-A-C-A. So, Cabaza de Vaca, just make a note for him. Alright, who discovered the Grand Canyon? Go. I think you barely got it, like barely with anything.
What's his last name, Joey?
C,
C.
C.
Cabrillo?
You're thinking of somebody else. Ethan?
Coronado.
That's Coronado. So, Francisco Coronado. Speaking of him, something with Grand Canyon, Coronado. Alright, who discovered the Mississippi River? Go. That was Ethan barely.
DeSoto.
DeSoto. Okay, 7th grade, I can't tell who's humming, but because you're closer to the camera, make sure that you're being very quiet, because they can probably hear that easier than I can. So just be quiet, whoever's doing that. Thank you. Alright, say your answer again.
DeSoto.
DeSoto. So, Fernando De Soto. Alright, who explored the coast of California? Go. That was Chris.
The last name starts with C?
Yep, that's a C. Good job. So, Juan Cabrillo. Just make a note for him. Who was the African that accompanied the Spanish on their expeditions? Go. Alright, Chris?
The last name, Joey?
He only has one name, so I'm assuming his last name starts with E.
E?
E.
Ethiopia.
Nope. That's a country. But it's alright. So, anyone else want to guess? Nope. Alright.
Esquimalt.
You're getting closer though. Estevanico. So just make a note for him. Do your best on spelling. It's on page 10. Just write page 10. Estevanico.
Estevanico.
Do the best you can for it. Alright, moving away from the people now. So just make sure those are just all the key conquistadors that we talked about yesterday. So make sure that you're studying them. Alright, what is the first permanent European settlement in present day United States? It's also the first Spanish settlement. They were going to start talking about the first French. So just make a note. This is the first permanent European settlement. Go. Alright, that was good job. And honestly, what is the oldest road in the United States? We talked about this and I had a picture of it. Which reminds me to get my PowerPoint up in a second. Go. Chris.
El Reno, something, right? No, hold on. Royale.
Okay, you're right that the last word is Royale.
El starts with C, the middle word, right?
Okay. If no one else gets closer than that, I'll let you have it because you are missing a whole word though.
Right.
Okay, Ethan, you got anything closer? Alright, let you have it. El Camino Real. It means the Royal Highway or the King's Highway, is how I've always heard it, but the Royal Highway. Just make a note for that. Alright, what city served as the capital of Spanish settlement in the American Southwest? So it was like the capital of New Spain, basically. Go. Alright, Chris?
Sorry.
It's a city. Starts with S. It's a city that's still around today.
Yes, sir.
Still around. I mean, technically all 3 of the cities talked about here are still around.
I'm not sure.
Okay?
St. Augustine.
No. Nope, that's later. Santa Fe! So,
Are
Santa
you
Fe,
kidding?
write it down. Santa Fe. This was the capital of the Spanish settlement in the American
I
Southwest.
thought that was a food.
I thought it
Correct.
was
Okay, we gotta keep going. We can't be going over what you think it is. Alright, what is the first European settlement in California? Go. Ethan Barely.
San Francisco.
Yes, San
Oh,
Francisco.
I thought I was wrong for a second.
Alright, well I couldn't tell what you said right away, so I thought you were combining two different cities. Alright, what is the main religion, we talked about this a lot, that Spain brought over to the New World when it was either turned or died? Go. Chris got it, Genesis and Acts.
Roman Catholicism.
Good job. Let's see. Okay, we started getting into this. Okay. Who was the king of Spain that decided he would send over his Spanish fleet to go attack England? Who was the king of Spain at this time? Go. Okay.
Philip II.
Say it again.
Go.
Okay, let's say, okay, I haven't heard that pronounced that way in a while, but alright, Philip II.
In a while.
Alright. Sometimes I hear some weird pronunciations. Alright, who was the queen of England during this time period whenever the Spanish Armada was coming? Go. Okay, Jen, I think you barely got it, but it was close. Which one?
Third.
Third? No, Chris.
First.
First. This is the first Queen Elizabeth. Alright. Alright, name one of the two pirates that she hired.
Two or one?
Okay, well there's two in your book, so I'll take one. There's one that you need to know because he's gonna come back later on in your book. The other one also happened, so make a note. But okay, but name one of them. Go. I think you got it, Ethan.
Drake.
Okay.
I got no. I can see the full name.
Is it Drake?
Well, remember he got the last name,
Sir
so it
Francis Drake?
counts. Yeah, Sir Francis Drake is the full name for it. Alright, the other one is John Hawkins. So make a note for both of them. Alright, that is pretty much all we talked about yesterday. You can get it quickly. So just make sure that if you're a citizen, they're going, I didn't know this. Okay, it's okay for right now, but like I said, we covered a lot of people. I mean, we're very quick in history. So that's part of the reason why you want to be studying a little bit every single night to help get you ready for it. Alright, put a text up to page number 10 and 11. Oh, that's right. Who had 8 points or more? Who had 9 points or more? You really had 9 points or more? You did a good job. Alright,
How many did you have?
don't
11.
don't let me forget to give your candy later on.
Alright.
Alright, so we started talking about the Spanish Armada and King Philip II and Queen Elizabeth I. Now there were several reasons we talked about why King Philip decided that he would go and basically try to take over England. Anyone remember what was the reason? Raise your hand. Why did he decide? I'm gonna go send my Spanish Armada or Spanish fleet to go take them out. Okay.
Because they weren't Catholic.
Yeah, that's one reason. They weren't Catholic. Okay.
Expansion.
Yeah, partly as well for it. Anyone else remember another reason for it?
Where's the reason to start with?
I mean, it's more of like thinking.
What?
There's multiple
Riches.
multiple things. Okay, riches. So because Queen Elizabeth did hire the pirates to basically go attack the Spanish ships, she was interfering with trade. So the counter-reformation of the Roman Catholic Church. Multiple reasons for it. England was also interfering with Spain's control of the Netherlands. So there was a bunch of reasons. But once the Pope issued the counter-reformation, King Philip II said, okay, this is an official reason. I can now basically do a crusade against England and have official sanction to go take over this country. So, just making up that. So, in 1588, this is a date that I wrote on the board, I think 2 days ago, but you should go ahead and remark it in your book if you didn't mark it previously. 1588, he sends over his Spanish Armada to go take out England. He sent them up the Spanish Channel to go ahead and take out England. Now, they were supposed to reach the Netherlands to pick up additional troops and then go attack England. They never made it to the Netherlands. Now, your book reference says that there was a storm that came and that basically destroyed the ships. Not all of them, but even King Philip II realized that this was something that he couldn't really prepare for. The idea of a storm just coming through and dashing his ships against the rocks. The English ships at the time, they were smaller and more maneuverable, so they could get out of the way and move farther away from it. That's how come your book has the quote a little bit farther down, talking about what he said, and then also your book has a historian quote towards the middle of page 11. So I like to give other people a chance to read, so it gives my voice a break and your ears a break from listening to me. So who wants to read the block quote towards the center of page 11, where it's one historian saying it? Your book doesn't give the author; you don't have to know the author for it. All right, Chris.
Is to start with Philip.
Yep.
Philip II's design was to overthrow the government of Queen Elizabeth I, to seat Mary, Queen of Scots, a Roman Catholic, in her place, and to restore popery throughout Great Britain. If he had succeeded, the whole subsequent history of England and Scotland would have been changed. There would have been no Protestant North America and no Anglo-Saxon civilization. It would have made Spain the mistress of the world, and that nation would have set the tempest for civilization in the ages which followed.
And that's how come, are you volunteering to read the little smaller quote further on?
No, I just have one question.
Okay, wait just one more second, okay? Alright, so that's how come, your book gives the quote that King Philip said. Whenever he found out that, okay, a storm basically came and destroyed his ships, that's the little quote a little bit farther down where he said, I sent my ships to fight against men and not against the wind and waves of God. He understood that this was something that God used to basically stop him from sending his ships to go attack England. And even the English acknowledged it as well. They had a decorative or imitative medal made to help say that, to help kind of remember this event, because they understood that this was important, that God basically protected them from the Spanish Armada coming over and destroying them or taking out their queen. So this commemorative medal, it says God blew when they were scattered. Now they have it in a different language, obviously on the medal, but that's what it actually translates to. So they didn't have just a decorative medal, or basically kind of like in America we have coins that document events. Kind of like for them, they had a special medal made, just saying here's what happened and God protected us. So just make a note of that year for it, as well as the two different rulers, Philip II of Spain and Queen Elizabeth I. All right, what was your question, Ethan?
At the Invincible Armada 1, the people of New England were really Protestant, weren't they? You think even if England won, they still probably would have been lost.
Alright, well let's look at the thought provoker, because it's actually a really good question. Alright, so it says, in what ways might history have been different had the Spanish Armada defeated England? Okay, so you're right that the English people were Protestant, but what happens whenever the rulers of a country doesn't like the religion of the people? What do they sometimes do?
Change it.
What?
Change it.
Genocide.
Wait. We'll get 2 seconds. Okay, or what's something else that they can do? Like, I don't think we've quite got to this yet. Like if you remember the Spanish Inquisition, whenever they were saying, like, if you're Catholic or not, and if you weren't Catholic, they would kill you, and that's people in their own country. And that's part of the reason why the Spanish had this mindset of go and convert the Indians. You become Catholic, or you die. That's your options. There is no, well, I don't really believe, don't care. You're Catholic or you're dead, that's it. Alright, did you have anything else you wanted to add to it?
I was gonna say genocide.
Yeah, so they can literally go through and kill off their own people for being the wrong religion. Okay?
But also, history would have been different in the way that England, how it influences us today. I mean, that's our heritage. And if England would have been defeated and taken over by Spain, everyone in this room would have either been Spaniards or Catholic. The school would probably not exist.
There's lots of repercussions. That's what comes when your book says such a big deal about it. So I'm going to ask you a thought provoker just to think of what would have happened. Yeah, you're right that we probably would all speak at least some version of Spanish today, like how the Latin American countries do, like in Mexico and all those other countries. Most of them speak Spanish still today.
But the country may be barren. I mean, it may not be. It probably would honestly be barren.
Yeah, well, the Spanish were spreading out and they did colonize, but yeah, it probably would have taken a lot longer. Now, we're going to talk about the French later on, that the French were also colonizing North America, so we might have French language and French language and Spanish language together in North America, because we had those two different major regions. We might have a Spanish and French war at some point. There's entirely different history, basically.
If you look at those two governments, neither of them have really anything to do with freedom. So freedom would not be a thing. Democracy would not be a thing here. We would not have an opinion in anything. It'd be almost, because England is what gave us the idea of democracy.
Yeah, with the Magna Carta. We'll talk about that in a later chapter.
Yeah.
That's not French or Spanish.
And so we wouldn't have any of that. We would have no free will. It'd be pretty much like, it'd be a form of communism almost. We'd all be, they honestly might use feudalism against us, and we could all be serfs.
We could be, they have a monarchy at this point, but it's one of those, like, we could very well just have monarchies, like, just the world, because America is kind of what started the idea of democracies for, like, the rest of the country, for, like, the rest of the world. People started copying our version of government, so we might still have monarchies today, or you're right, we might go back to feudalism. It's just where America, since you have the English that loved freedom, and we're going to talk about English history specifically a little bit in the next next chapter, there's reasons why the English specifically said we need to write down information, like our laws, like in the Magna Carta, or we need to write down documents so that way, so way everyone knows what the rules are. That's an English idea, and that's an American idea today. Now, countries have since then written down their constitutions and laws and stuff today, but that started with the English. The idea of studying the Bible and then comparing what your pastor says to the Bible, that's more of a Protestant idea, not a Catholic idea. I mean, there's a whole lot of people that are saying that.
Not to mention, technologically, we'd be behind from where we are right now, because England, there's a lot of great minds in England. Poetry would be completely different, because like the Westminster Abbey has all the best poets in the world of all time. So like a lot of those would not have existed, at least in that term. So I mean, technologically we'd be behind, most likely, if England didn't exist. Private schools actually came from England, so we would not have private schools.
With how we structured today, that the ideas came over, at least partly from England. So I mean, different things like that, not to mention things like World War I, World War II, like they would have entirely changed at that point. So I mean, I just want you to just to think that this is probably why God saw fit to intervene. Now, we don't see typically God's hand at this strong of a moment, like all throughout history. Now, God does influence the affairs of men, but God understands that we have free will as well. Occasionally, though, God decides to interfere more drastically, and this seems like an event where God decided, no, you're not doing this. And God decided, nope, I'm going to stop you here now, because this would greatly affect so many other things. Nope, we're going to go ahead and just stop this right here. Okay, so anyone have any questions, though, about Spanish legacy? Because that was pretty much the last thing I had to discuss about Spanish before we move over and start talking about the French. Alright, so French exploration. Now keep in mind, where was Portugal exploring? Genesis. Okay, so remember, you have the line of demarcation. You have Spain, where they got pretty much all of North and South America. Portugal gets one little spot. What little spot were they exploring? I don't want to go all the way back to my photo. So do you remember what country or what section they were exploring? Little piece over here. Right, so Brazil. So they're exploring Brazil. Now, keep in mind, the line of demarcation only applied to what, 2 countries? So, Chris?
Only applied to Portugal and Spain.
Yeah, so this is why you think, why is the French going? The French are going, that doesn't apply to me, and so they're going to go do their own thing. And that's probably the reason, though, why they do stay away from the Spanish, because they don't want to get sucked into it. But that's probably why the French are going, I'm going to go ahead and explore this over here, because the line of demarcation doesn't apply to me, so I'm just going to keep going. And then England is doing its own thing, because is England even Catholic? Reckon.
No.
Yeah, so England doesn't even care what the Pope does at this point. England's going to do whatever England wants. So this is why the French, they're trying to explore a little bit different sections. They're probably staying away from Spanish, but they're also saying the line of demarcation doesn't apply to me. So they're going to go explore what they want to explore. All right, these are the French explorers now. For what? Okay, or not. That's fine. So these are pretty much. So this map has the Spanish exploration and the French exploration. So just be careful. This picture is on the next page if you want to flip over to it. But keep in mind, there's some important people on this page before you flip that we need to mark before we get over there. So you have the Spanish that are exploring mainly down here in Central, South America, and more of the western portion of America. The French are going more up here in the Canada, and as we would see, our side of the United States. So that's kind of the reason why the French are staying over on their section, and the Spanish are exploring more on the other side at this time. The French, they came and they were looking for a northwest passage. They wanted to find a water route all the way across this new continent. Why do you think they're looking for that water route? Ethan?
To get across the country.
Now, is there a water route all the way across the country?
Yeah.
No, there's not. No, but they were looking for it at least, and they're trying to say, okay, is there a water route we can just go all the way across and hopefully cut the time in half? Because if you're going to go around North and South America, where do you have to go? Anyone know? It's not on this map.
The Panama Canal?
Not built yet.
What about the Strait of Magellan?
Yep, do you know where the Strait of Magellan is at?
Isn't it where he landed? right?
You're right that the Strait of
Like,
Magellan,
where-
it is named after Magellan, who did go all the way around the world. That's where the
Right.
name comes from.
Is it in Utah?
Yep. Good job, actually. Yeah, it's, if you're going across, if you want to go across the continents, you gotta go all the way around and then all the way back up. That's part of the reason why we eventually build the Panama Canal, which is we go, that's a pain. We're gonna make a shortcut. But that's part of the reason why the French were looking for one, is they said, that's a pain. We're gonna find a shortcut. So that's how come they're looking up here and they're hoping there's a water route. And that's how come they're checking up in that Great Lakes region first, trying to see, is there a water route? Can we at least get through this? This seems like this is just too much work to go all the way around. And that's why they're looking for one. Alright, so just make a note that that was the original water route that they were looking for. Alright, Garavani de Verrazano. Make a note for him. He was an Italian, so I didn't want to checking his pronunciation. So Garavani de Verrazano. Make a note for him that he was trying exploring as well for it. Jacques Cartier. He was the person that's given credit for exploring the St. Lawrence River. So, just keep in mind, this, with French pronunciation, it does get a little bit weird. So, Jacques Cartier, they don't call him Jacques Carter. Okay, I know that's how it looks in English. Please don't. I know what you mean if you say it that way, but please be careful of French pronunciation and at least try. So, Jacques Cartier, that's how you say his name for it. So, just make a note, Garavani de Verrazano and Jacques Cartier. Make a note for the people. But Cartier, he discovered the St. Lawrence River. The St. Lawrence River is up in this section. That's why they're looking this direction, hoping these water routes will go all the way across. They don't, so that's what they were hoping for. Alright, now next page. Alright, the French made several attempts to establish settlements. The Huguenots were coming over. Now the Huguenots, this is a type of French Protestant, so they were coming over to try to establish colonies. They were facing persecution in France, because remember, what's the main religion of France at this time period? Yeah, so Roman Catholicism. So they were coming over trying to escape persecution. Now, keep in mind, the Spanish that live in the area, what religion are they? Genesis. Not quite.
The Roman Catholic.
Yeah, so they're Roman Catholic Catholicism as well. So they go from one area where they have Roman Catholic to another area that has Roman Catholic. So it didn't help them out a whole lot. But they were trying for it. Their settlements, they eventually failed because of hardships and because the Spanish didn't really want them there. But it did establish that they were at least trying to go into the New World. So we'll just point out that the Huguenots were attempting it. Okay.
The Huguenots were created by John Calvin, right?
They were one of the founders, yes. So, Huguenots, just remember these are the ones with the French. Alright, establishing New France. Alright, 1608, that's a date that I believe I wrote down a couple days ago, but it feels a little while on that. So, 1608, one of the other dates that you need to know. This is the founding for the first permanent French settlement. Now remember, what's the first permanent European settlement? Ethan? St. Augustine. This is the first permanent French settlement. This one is Quebec. So, Quebec is still a city, it's still in Canada, but just keep in mind that this is Quebec. It was founded by Samuel de Champlain. So again, I know pronunciation and spelling does not match right now, so just be careful. Samuel de Champlain, that he's remembered as the father of New France. Make a note of him, mark him as well for it. But he founded Quebec, so make a note of all of that about him. Alright, let's see. Other Frenchmen came over as well to convert the Native Americans onto Catholicism as well for it. Your book points out that Jacques Marquette, he was a Jesuit missionary, and Louis Jollet, that he was a fur trader. They were trying to explore more into the central area of kind of Canada, but also in the central Mississippi area. Your book points out that Robert Cavalier de la Salle, that he sailed down the Mississippi River and he basically claimed the entire Mississippi River area for France. He basically just went down the Mississippi River and went dibs. Okay, that's it, all the way down. And that's basically what he did, is he claimed the entire area, said all this belongs to France as he went down it. And since he was the first person, the European person, to claim it, that's probably the reason why France gets to keep it. He claimed the entire Mississippi Valley area for France. He named it Louisiana in honor of King Louis XIV of France. So let's make a note that the name is Louisiana. Now we only have one state today named Louisiana, but the whole area was named Louisiana for a while. So just make a note of that. Okay.
So the Louisiana Purchase, right?
Yep. do you remember under which presidency that occurs? That's not in the near future because we're not even at America yet. But do you remember whose presidency that is?
Isn't that?
You don't know, it's okay.
What is his name, Charlie?
Last name starts with J.
J?
J.
No, Andrew Jackson.
Nope, too far. Too far.
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson.
Wow, you're smart.
It's okay. It's alright. So Thomas Jefferson. But it's okay, we'll come up to it. So your book just points out again, so Robert Cavalier de la Salle, just make a note of him that he basically claimed the entire Mississippi River Valley area. Does anyone, okay, we're not over that section, but does anyone remember who sold the Mississippi area of Louisiana Purchase to us? Okay. Well, what he goes by starts with an N. Wait, let's give my kids a chance. Let's give my kids a chance. Starts with an N.
What?
He was a dictator of France.
Dictator of France.
We stayed out of all these wars in Europe.
Wait, what?
What? I can't hear you. Nope. Okay, Jack.
Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yep. So Napoleon sells us that whole area because Napoleon needed to fund. Alright, we gotta go. Okay, but yeah, it's okay. We will talk about it. We will talk about it, so don't worry about it. Alright, so just make a note, Robert Cavalier de la Salle, that he claimed the entire Mississippi Valley River for France, named it Louisiana. We will eventually buy it from France later on. Okay. So your book points out the French ultimately named Canada, the Great Lakes regions, and the entire Mississippi Valley area, and they named it New France because they weren't super creative in this area, and that's okay. So most of the French colonists, and they remained in the Great Lakes region, and even though they were trying to send over people to try to come colonize New France, it was just more of just a wilderness area. The main thing that the French traded for was fur, because fur became fashionable back in Europe. So they would come over to America, trade with the Indians to get fur, or lay traps in for their own animals to get fur, like beaver fur, and then ship it back home, or bring it back home because it was considered fashion. And so that way people back home would buy it. So I mean, people are going to pay money, and okay, it's just a little bit weird, but that's fine. So because of that, fur trade becomes the most profitable business in New France. Now, the French got along relatively well with the Native Americans up in the Canada area and in this section 4. They got along with them pretty well, mainly because it was just the French coming over and just trading and then just leaving in a lot of cases. They didn't really set up settlements, so the Indians didn't feel like that these Frenchmen were coming over and taking their land. Kind of how like most of the British do, how you have more and more people showing up and more people are starting to colonize onto the land. That's part of the reason why you have the British and the Native Americans start to go at it. Up in the Canada area, the French, not really as much. And the French would actually marry the Indians in a lot of cases and have families. Your book points out that the only exception to this was with the Iroquois. Now, we talked about the Iroquois Confederacy previously. Do you want to remember what was special about the Iroquois Confederacy? Okay.
There are different tribes of Indians that teamed up to form a super tribe.
That works. Yeah, it was the five different tribes of Iroquois that they joined up together to form up basically, okay, a massive like tribe group that works for it. But the Iroquois, they did not, the Iroquois basically had a grudge against Champlain because Champlain had joined the Algonquin and the Huron on the attacks against the Iroquois, because remember the Iroquois was basically them versus the other Native Americans. So Champlain, remember, he's the father of New France. He sided with the other tribes, the Algonquin and the Huron, against the Iroquois, and the Iroquois just held grudges for a long time. This is why whenever you have the French and Indian War later on, we'll talk about this a little bit because we kind of stay out of this one as Americans. But with the French and Indian War, the Iroquois side up with the British, while the rest of the Native Americans side up with the French. And that's the reason why they go against each other. Alright, so just make a note though that fur trade is the most profitable business for New France. That's the last sentence in that paragraph, a full paragraph on this page. So if you're looking at this page, the last full sentence, fur trade is the most profitable business for France. It's not really in bold or italics, but do make a note for it. That's the best way that they put it, but they talk about how fur trade is the major one for them. They just don't put it concisely. Just make a note, fur trade was the main source of income for the French coming over. Alright, New France remains sparsely populated. The French were trying to get people to come over and establish colonies or basically settlements in their territory, but it just wasn't working out. It tried several schemes basically to try to make its people come over. Your book points out too, they're kind of bizarre, that it increased restrictions on bachelors. Alright, now what's a bachelor? Anyone know?
Degree.
Okay, a what?
Degree.
Okay, not in this sense. But you're right, you can't get like a bachelor in education, so you're not wrong. Okay, if you're talking about like a status.
The male of a married relationship.
Nope. Basically, it's an unmarried guy. So basically, yeah. So basically, you get fined. You get in trouble for being unmarried in North America because the French wanted, yes, and girls are bachelorettes. No, it's the idea. That's how come they have whole TV shows about like some guy choosing right, yes, or some girl choosing some guy. That's why those TV shows come out. Stupid, stupid. But yeah. Anyway, moving on. So a bachelor, your book just points out when certain restrictions were put on them that they would find fathers of unmarried daughters over 16 trying to hurry up and get them married. Now, keep in mind, they didn't have like legal age marriage requirements back then. So just keep in mind, if you were 16, it was considered you were of marriageable age and you need to get married, and your dad needs to hurry up and go get you married. Because wait, Adrian?
Were they from like Dubai or something?
No, this is French, in French culture. So they're trying to basically say you need to have families, and they understood you need to have married people and to have families moving into this section. So the French are trying to make people try to have families in the New World. The book even points out that they even shipped over king's daughters. These were girls to basically marry people in the New World, just trying again to increase families and populations in France. Now keep in mind, we do not do this today at all. We would frown heavily on this, but this is the culture back then, trying to encourage populations and families together, not just the fur traders just living up in there. They said, no, we need families, because families will increase population, there will be stability, we need families to move there. Well, most people said, no, I'm not going over there, it's fur traders. But they were trying to get people to move over there. Alright, your book points out as well this list, so we're going to go through these, that there were some problems as to how come France was never really able to establish the colonies like the British were. Alright, so let's go through these. There's 4 of you, and there's 4 points, so this works out really well. Who wants to take the first one then? Alright, well Chris raised his hand. Chris gets it.
Most of the French colonists were hunters and traders and never established permanent homes.
Yeah, because if you're a trader, you're going to be moving around. Make sure you're raising your hand because they can pick up you much better than they can pick up me. So because of that, as the fur traders are moving around, they're not establishing homes. So they just keep moving as they're hunting the animals. Alright, number 2, Genesis, you want this one? Alright.
The colonists lacked religious freedom. Only Catholics realized the migration of France. The Huguenots, Protestants, who were seeking religious freedom were now in the settling of France.
Yeah, so once you had like that one time with the Huguenots in the 1560s, that was about it. They weren't allowed to go back over. You would think that France would want them to leave their main country, but France basically said no, only loyal Catholics can go to the New World. And so it's one of those, but why? Well, how does this work? But that's again, that was just the mindset at the time. Alright, number 3, Ethan.
The colonists lacked the political freedom. New France was ruled by the king and his world government.
So because of this, there was a British. We're going to talk about the reason. Part of the reason why you have some of the British coming over is they wanted more political freedom from the King of England. All right, last one, Brecken.
The colonists lacked economic freedom. The French government looked upon New France as simply a source of raw materials, thus all economic policies were geared to benefit the mother country, regardless of their effects on New France.
We're going to talk more about this with England later on, with the idea of mercantilism, with the idea of you exist for the good of the mother country. All of your resources should benefit real England or real France. All of your gold should benefit the real country, and you're just there. And we're going to talk about, that's part of the reason as to how come we have problems later on. Okay.
Communism.
It is a version, kind of close to it, not quite, because it's the idea of if you live in the real country, the mother country, then you're a real citizen. If you're in the colonies, you don't really matter. Yeah, it is kind of a type for it. But yeah, it is something to where and they were saying, okay, you only exist for the good of the mother country. You're not a real citizen, or you're not really part of it. So it's sad. Alright, French legacy in North America. The French, they did leave a rich heritage in North America, and particularly in the Canadian area, but then also we have some people down in the Louisiana area as well for it. So, it points out Canada, the Great Lakes region, present state of Louisiana. I grew up in Louisiana, as I believe I mentioned before. And so that's probably the reason why I know the French pronunciation a little bit better, but I also grew up about an hour away from New Orleans, is how your book tells you well. Now, some people pronounce it New Orleans. That's not how we say it at all. So New Orleans is how we say it. We kind of get sloppy with pronunciation, but Cajun is a version of French that people speak as well for it. So just making up for it, got New Orleans. This one is probably the best known city of French heritage in America. The architecture of New Orleans is kind of different. This is the French Quarter in it, and it's supposed to be kind of designed after French architecture. So again, kind of pretty, kind of interesting. You don't have to like know specifically anything about it, but it's just kind of interesting. Okay, Chris.
So, if you go in France, eat Cajun food.
Our Cajun is very, okay, you know how the Spanish view the Mexican like culture?
It's a tradition.
They view it more of like gutter or slang, kind of like the same idea. There is French, like proper French words in French culture, and then there's the Cajun French and the Cajun culture. So, while the Cajuns, they view it as they know that they're kind of like a weird mix of French and English, but, I mean, I guess if the Frenchmen, if they want the food, they can. But things like beignets and stuff like that, which is basically like a giant donut, is good. And
Like
so that's
the
part of the
olive
reason, that is part of like, that's part of like our Cajun culture. There again, I shouldn't hear you.
Doesn't like Olive Garden have tomatoes, like they're like the zucchinis or something?
I have no idea.
You know what I'm talking about? You ever been to Olive Garden?
Like 6 months ago.
Okay, we gotta go. Okay, that's pretty much it, but we did finish at 5 minutes early, so good. So that way I can go ahead and review the French and the Spanish. Because remember, tomorrow is Friday, so we can do it. I don't think we can do the dart game in 5 minutes.
What?
I don't think we can because the time y'all stand and walk, it gets too many points off of it. So we'll just do the palm game one more time. We'll try to solve the games tomorrow though. Alright, so everyone got a piece of paper again though. So yeah, you can make sure, because if you didn't know it the first time and you don't know it now, you should really be learning it because tomorrow is coming. Yeah, you should know it. 7th grade, if you want to play as well, you can.
They're children.
They're trash.
Alright, we're not gonna wait for you though. We're not gonna wait for you though. So first, ready to raise your hand. Alright, so thinking back over it, we'll do just last thing for right now, so we can move along. Who conquered the Incas of Peru? Go. That was Ethan though.
Francisco Pizarro.
Good job. Who conquered the Aztecs? Go. That was Chris. Alright,
What does it start with?
last name begins with a C.
Peru.
Go. You were next. Cortez.
Bro.
I didn't know this.
Alright, we gotta keep going. Don't get distracted. Who discovered the Pacific Ocean? Go. That was Chris and then Jaden again. Okay.
Oh, wait,
do
no,
that again.
no.
Oh wait, stop.
I see
Do
what
that
you
again.
passed.
You can't do that because she can hear me much better than I can. I don't want to blow
She?
out her headphones. Yes, and he, Quentin as well. I don't want to blow out headphones. Okay.
Quit. Quit, girl.
The last name begins with a B if you're talking about just the last name part. Good job. So Vasco de Balboa. Alright. Who discovered the Grand Canyon? I don't know if it's me. Okay, keep doing that. Go. Okay, what's Genesis though? And then Ethan. No, I'm sorry. Ethan, you were next.
Coronado.
Coronado. Cabrillo was somebody else. I'm sorry. So Francisco Coronado. Alright, who discovered Florida? Go. Okay, that was Ethan
Ponce de
again.
Leon.
Ponce de Leon. Remember, Juan Ponce de Leon.
Juan
Alright.
Ponce de Leon.
What is, or who discovered the Mississippi River? Go. Okay, Chris moved and then Ethan.
Let's start with
His last name begins with an S. We're talking about just the last name.
an S.
S.
Jesus.
Soto.
I'll take it. Hernando de Soto. Hernando de Soto. Alright. Okay. What is the date for the defeat of the Spanish Armada? I know, if you're observant, I know. What is the date? Trying to watch everybody. Go. You can first.
1588.
1588. Alright. Who claimed the Mississippi Valley for France? Who claimed the entire Mississippi Valley area? Go. Alright, Ethan.
El Sale.
Okay,
Sal?
La Salle is how you say it.
I can't say it.
It does look like Robert Capier de la Salle, so it looks de la Salle. Just be careful for it. Alright,
I like that.
what is the date for the founding of New France? I know if you're observant, I know. I want everyone. Go.
It was me.
I feel like you two were cheating. Genesis. 1608. Alright.
I didn't see it.
With your permission? No. What was the most profitable trade in New France? Glenn knows. Go. Ethan cheated. Alright. Fur. Just make a note for that. Okay. Who founded Quebec? He was known as the father of New France. Go, Ethan.
Father in France?
Father in France, Steve out of
Champagne.
what?
Champagne.
I'll take that.
Champagne.
Champagne. So,
Champagne.
Samuel Day Champagne. Don't say champagne. Okay, no. Your homework for tonight. Sit down, Glenn.
With homework?
Your homework for tonight is 3 pages, 15 through 18. 15 through 18. Answer page 18, questions 1 through 8. Answer page 18, questions 1 through 8. Don't forget, your editorials are due when?
Next Wednesday.
Wednesday. Don't forget. The bell's like, let's ring 5 seconds. Y'all can talk 5
Points?
Okay, but if we say champagne in France,
Sparkling cider.
in
Hey.
France, they drink.
Okay.
What thing?
Alright, remember. Alright,
What thing you doing? Or is that Russian? I didn't hear it.
it's okay.
Chris,
3 pages,
I learned
15
that
to
stuff in
18.
like 6th grade.
Man, you're so cool. I wish I was you.
Yep.
You're like, oh, how did you know this? I learned it last year.
Wow.
Okay, look, you don't have to make us sad like that. You can just get out the